Okay, let's do a review on the 1995 American League champion Cleveland Indians. This is a team that won 100 games in a strike shortened season by about 2 weeks. They went 144 in 1995 on their way to going to the World Series. And let's get into this team. As always, we'll get started with the offense, looking at the top of the order and their on base chances. Pretty much set in stone the lineup versus both lefties and righties. You have Kenny Lofton and Omar Vizquel at the top of the lineup. You see their on base chances there. Those numbers are just okay, not great, but just okay. A lot of speed up there, of course, which is nice. But I wish the on base chances were a little bit better out of your 1, 2 guys. Now, number three, pretty much set in stone, was Carlos Baerga, the second baseman. Let's take a look at his hits with multiple base advancement. You see his numbers right there. Very good against lefties, pretty good against righties. Again, a switch hitter, which is nice to have in the middle of the order. Now, let's spend a little time talking about the cleanup hitter, Albert Bell, who really had one of the really just incredible years. You look at his numbers from that year in not even 550 at bats. Actually, his total at bats were 546. He had 50 home runs and drove in 126 runs that year, while he hit 317. First, I'm going to show you Albert Bell's hits with multiple base advancement, and those numbers can go even higher depending upon the ballpark you're playing in. So, some of the ballpark effect home runs, those numbers can easily go into the double digits right there. So those are very nice numbers out of your cleanup hitter. And then it doesn't stop there with Albert Bell, because you see his on base chances right there versus lefties and righties. So this is really one of the better cards you're going to see out of a pretty much a straight cleanup hitter. That's the perfect spot for a guy like Albert Bell in any lineup, is hitting cleanup. So those are really, really solid numbers. Let's take a look a little deeper into the lineup. And again, I use the booklet that Stratomatic releases with the special series set to kind of work as a guide as to how the 95 Indians, or any team for that matter, would work their lineup. They have Eddie Murray pretty much set in stone as the everyday DH versus lefties and righties, and hitting fifth. And you're going to see his numbers with multiple base advancement by base runners. So you could see excellent numbers versus righties. The numbers against lefties is a little bit low, but that's how Eddie Murray checks out. Now, I'm going to go through a few more guys here offensively, and this is going to tie into my overall score for the Cleveland Indians offense. I'm going to look at the everyday third baseman that year, Jim Thome. First, I'm going to show you his hits with multiple base advancement, and then right there you see his on base chances. This is against right-handed pitching, and you can see it's really nice to have a guy like Jim Thome, who in 1995, according to the Stratomatic book, he hit eighth against left-handed pitching, and he hit sixth against right-handed pitching. So those are really pretty incredible numbers that you get from someone who that year hit towards the bottom of the order. I could tell you, in times when I've played with the 95 Indians in the past, and I'm making up my own lineup, I actually put Jim Thome higher in the lineup against right-handed batting. Excuse me, versus right-handed pitching. I actually put him third against right-handed pitching. But you can see those are very, very nice numbers out of Jim Thome. Now let's take a quick look at the first base platoon, where you had Herbert Perry playing first base against lefties, and you had Paul Sorrento playing first base against righties. First, I'm going to show you Herbert Perry's on base chances and his hits with multiple base advancement. Those are excellent numbers. And I'm going to show you Paul Sorrento's on base chances versus right-handed pitching. So you're pretty solid at the first base platoon with those two. Last but not least, I'm going to show you the right fielder, Manny Ramirez. And just to talk about just how deep and versatile this Cleveland Indians lineup was, again, using the Stratomatic book as a reference, Manny Ramirez hit sixth against left-handed pitching, and he hit seventh against right-handed pitching. Okay, so this is basically a guy who hit anywhere from 6 to 7 in the lineup. And let's look at his numbers. First, his on base chances. You see those numbers right there. I mean, those are pretty incredible numbers for a guy who hit towards the bottom of the order. And then let's take a look at his hits with multiple base advancement. You see those numbers check out very nicely. So overall, this is a excellent lineup that the 1995 Indians ran out there. And I'm going to show you my final ranks for the 95 Indians offense right now, where they scored a 4 out of 5 for on base percentage. Middle of the order, I gave them a 4.5 out of 5. And for righty lefty mix, depth, and versatility, I gave them a perfect score of a 5 out of 5. So the overall offensive score for the 95 Indians comes out to a 4.5 out of 5. Now, let's go over the defense real quick. Let's start with the infield middle defense with Vizquel and Baerga. Obviously, you're very solid at shortstop with Vizquel. He's one of the greatest defensive shortstops of all time. I was a little surprised when I went through the cards because it has been a little while since I went through the 95 Indians. It's probably been about a year or so since I actually went through this team and played with them. I was a little surprised that Baerga's E rating was a E24. I thought I remembered him having a lower E rating from that year, but obviously uh, that was wrong. So you would think with a guy like Vizquel at shortstop, you'd be solid up the middle, but it's a little concerning that you're carrying a 3 at second base with an E24. It's the E24 which is actually more concerning to me at second base. That's a little bit high of a E rating at second base. So I settled on a score of a 4 out of 5 for the Cleveland Indians middle infield defense. Now let's take a look at the outfield defense. Pretty much set in stone every day. The outfield left to right was Bell, Lofton, and Manny Ramirez. And this is going to be a score which is really going to drive down the entire defensive score for the Indians, as well as it does drive down their overall team score later on in the video. I gave their outfield defense a 2 out of 5. Even though I know they've got the one in center field with Kenny Lofton, which is very nice, it's hard to go above 2.5 or higher when you're carrying 2 4s in your corner outfield. That's a little rough to carry. It does make it a little more tolerable that both Manny Ramirez and Albert Bell's E ratings are very reasonable. Both of them are in the single digits, but it's really hard to carry 2 4s in the outfield. So I settled on a score, an outfield defensive score for the 95 Indians at a 2 out of 5. Now, as we examine the entire defense and all of the E ratings throughout the team. The outfield E ratings, going back on that, I did say you were solid in left and right with the E ratings. However, the bad news about Kenny Lofton in center field, yes, he's a 1, but he's an E12 in center field, which is something that you really don't want. Obviously, you're really good at shortstop with Omar Vizquel. He's an E12. I talked about the high E rating at second base. Jim told me at third base, you are carrying him at third base as a 3, but he's only an E20, which is a pretty solid E rating at third base. Depending on who you got at first base, Herbert Perry's only an E4 at first base, so that's very solid. Paul Sorrento's E rating is a little bit high. He is at a E13. So overall, my E rating for the 1995 Indians came out to a 3.5 out of 5. So their overall defensive score comes out at a 3.2 out of 5. So that's my grade for the 95 Indians defense. Now let's go through the starting pitching. We have Ken Hill at the top of the rotation. I'm going to show you his on base chances right there. You see those numbers check out very strong out of your ace. So I give the ace a rating of a 4 out of 5. Very solid card out of Ken Hill. Now let's take a look at the starting rotation depth. I'm going to show you Charles Nagy, Dennis Martinez, and Oral Hershiser. I'm going to show you all of their on base chances right now. You see all those numbers check out pretty good, especially with Dennis Martinez. Very consistent numbers there, which is nice. The one aspect about Charles Nagy's card, which worries me a little bit, is specifically against right-handed hitting. There's a lot of power opportunities on his card when he faces right-handed batting, which is a little bit alarming. But if you just look at the overall on base chances, 11 out of 33 is a pretty average number. He's not even a guy who, in my opinion, I would even say is the number 2 guy in the rotation. Going off of the Stratomatic book, they go Hill 1, Nagy 2, Martinez 3, Hershiser 4. I know whenever I play with the 95 Indians, I usually go Hill, Martinez, Hershiser, Nagy. That's how I worked that out for the 95 Indians. So the overall Indian starting rotation graded out at a 4 out of 5, which is a very good score. Now let's take a look at the bullpen. Jose Mesa, the closer, that year he had one of those magical years that you see closers have, and this is really once again one of the more solid closer cards you're going to get in Stratomatic. He was just incredible that year. You see his on base chances right there. Obviously, a lot of strikeouts on his card, which you like to see out of your closer. So this was a very easy call for me, as I gave him a perfect score of a 5 out of 5. Now let's investigate the Indians' bullpen depth. One thing which I like about the 95 Indians bullpen is you do have some versatility in this bullpen where you have 2 viable left-handed arms in Jim Poole and Ossenmacher. Um, you see Ossenmacher's numbers versus left-handed hitting right there. So um, I would look at his card as strictly a specialist who comes in and gets left-handed hitting out. And then you look at Jim Poole's numbers; his numbers check out the same. So that's nice to have that versatility there, where you have more than one lefty in the bullpen to come in who could get left-handed hitters out. You also have Eric Plunk in the bullpen. I'm going to show you his on base chance numbers right there. You could see those numbers on the surface look really, really good. However, once again, kind of similar to Charles Nagy's card in the starting rotation, Eric Plunk's card does have some opportunities of giving up some home runs versus right-handed batting. Now, the last guy I'm going to show you in the bullpen is Julian Tavares. I'm going to show you his numbers against right-handed hitting that year, and you could see this is really what puts the Indians bullpen over the top for me, because what you have here is you've got a right-handed reliever who is almost completely lights out against right-handed hitters. So when you look at the entire bullpen together as a whole, you've got 2 very capable left-handed arms who are very good at getting left-handed batting out. You've got Eric Plunk, who, again, on the surface, his numbers look pretty good, but I'd be a little worrisome about him facing right-handed batters because he does have some power on his card. But you have added versatility with Julian Tavares, who had an excellent year in 1995 for the Indians, who is really completely lights out against right-handed batting. So when you look at the overall bullpen together, I do like the versatility. It just has to be managed properly. It's not like it's a bullpen where like you're playing with the 96 Yankees when if you're in the sixth inning, you just put Mariano Rivera's card down for 2 or maybe even 3 innings and say, okay, he's in the game until I get to my closer. The bullpen just needs to be managed, mixed and matched a little bit. So I gave the Indians bullpen depth a perfect score of a 5 out of 5. So obviously the bullpen grades out at a perfect score of a 5 out of 5. So as we look at the 1995 Indians as a whole, you're going to see that they grade out at an overall score of a 4.18, and that is a excellent score. I don't give out a lot of scores that are comfortably above a 4, which is where I would put this one. I've done a couple of videos where teams were slightly above a 4, like a 4.08, somewhere around there. But with the 95 Indians, based on first and foremost the strength of their offense, once again, the offense scored a 4.5 out of 5 for a total score. And you look at the strong starting pitching, and I do really like this bullpen so long as it's just managed the right way. The 1995 Indians come in at a very good score of a 4.18. So that's my analysis on the 1995 American League champion Cleveland Indians. I thank you all for watching. My next video, my next team breakdown will be on the 1994 Montreal Expos. Have a good day, everyone.